All right, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to go File, Save As, and again, every time I make any changes, it's a good idea to give it another version number, and you can see I've got a whole bunch of different versions of that AEP file. What you got to remember is AEP files don't really use up a lot of memory space. I mean, they're just like an EDL. They're just a bunch of computer instructions, commands that you've given your program. So it's not like they're chewing up a lot of space. So it's always good to have a whole bunch of them. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is we want to deselect in our project panel and then double click to open up the import dialog box, because there are some other things that we want to get in here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select this Photoshop file that contains some of the other elements that we need today. So it's going to be credits PSD. Now, of course, it's not footage, so we want to change it to composition because we want to be able to get to all. We don't know how many layers are in there. That's the thing. It's a Photoshop file. There could be a bunch of layers. There could be 2, 7, 25. Who knows? But if I bring it in as footage, it flattens it, and I'm not going to be able to access those layers. So I'm going to change that to composition between layer sizes, and then I open that. And again, you can see the difference. It'll come up and it's going to ask me stuff. And of course, you know what I don't want to merge it. I want those layer styles to also be available. So I'm going to click OK. And of course, now again, you can see there's another composition in there. Now this is going to be a sub composition or a nested composition. And of course, you're also going to see a folder that's got the same name. And that folder actually contains whatever layers. And see when I expand that, there's 2 layers in there. So, and again, I'm going to hit that tilde key to explain to you again. You see how the compositions, because they're created within the program, they don't have any file paths. But, those Photoshop files do because I imported them from my assets folder. So it's very, very, again, important for you to understand that some things you can change the names of, some things you can't. Compositions you can change the name of because there's no file path. You got to be careful with these things. If you start changing the names of any of these elements that have a file path, well, you're going to knock that media offline. And there's no easy fix in this program, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close up all those open properties just by clicking down. And now I've got this nested composition called credits, and I'm going to take it and I want the composition because I'm going to actually add the composition to the top of the pile, and you can see in here, there it is, right? Now it didn't matter where my playhead was at this point because it just puts it right in the entire composition. Of course, now you can see one of the problems here is that, well, whoever did this Photoshop file, well, they created placeholder text for us, and they also kind of didn't know how to spell things. So obviously we're going to have to fix that. And again, that's one of the cool features of After Effects is I can edit Photoshop files in here without having to take it back into Photoshop. And again, that's what we're going to do. So now what I want to do is, because this is actually a composition, a nested composition, I'm going to double click on that and I'm going to open it up. And you're going to see, oh, wait a minute, what just happened? What just happened is this is my master composition. I double clicked on this. It opened up this. So now what I'm seeing is the 2 layers that make up that nested composition. Now these 2 layers are the layers that I need to kind of go and change, because first off, your name here is placeholder and this is misspelled. So I need to fix these. So I'm going to select these 2 layers. I'm going to click one, shift clicked on the other one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to try to basically take this and convert it to editable text. So they kind of move stuff around in here all the time. So you're gonna have to kind of go and find it. There it is now. It's under Create. It never used to be. Of course, the newer versions makes you crazy when they do this. So if you're using an older version, it might just appear on the drop down. If it doesn't, then look under Create. So what I'm going to do is hit Convert to Editable Text, which now means I can go in here and I can make changes to both of those layers, which is exactly what I want to do. So first I'm going to deselect and I'm going to start with the one layer. And the one layer I want to fix is the basically the one that has spelling mistakes in it. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to my horizontal type tool, and what I'm going to do is I want to go in here now and I want to put an E between the T and the D because it basically has to, spelling has to make sense. And then I'm going to click after the K because I don't know, maybe in Germany it's spelled that way, but we're not living in Germany. So I'm going to get rid of that K, and I'm going to replace that with a C, and hopefully, there we go. That's spelled properly. Documentary, an animated documentary where, I don't know what it said. It was gibberish before. Kind of like Kofefi. That's, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't been paying attention for the last few years. All right, so now I'm going to click back to my selection tool because I want to get out of the editing, and that's been updated. And again, whatever I do in a nested composition, if I click over to the master composition, you can see the changes appear in there. Okay, because this is called a nested composition, and any changes I make into it appear in the master composition. So there's the nested composition. Okay, so that's kind of cool, and we have now made some changes there, and that kind of resolves that problem, and basically kind of fixes those problems we have here. So yeah, you can see how that kind of works and makes changes that are easily kind of updated and ready to basically kind of customize as well. And that's, again, these are the kind of the cool features and functions that you can play around with in this program. So that finishes that, and we're going to come back to that in a few minutes, but we got some other work to do on there. But for now, we'll look at some other features here. So staying with that animated documentary, because what we want to do now is we want to put a animated path on that. So again, because we have keyframes, we have to indicate space and time. So the first thing we're going to do is take our playhead out to 5 seconds, which is basically where we want that effect to happen. So again, make sure you've got that animated documentary layer selected because that's the one we want to put on there. And then we'll go back to bridge, which is basically for us to preview any effects. And we'll go in there and we'll go back to presets up here. And then what we'll do is we're going to find the next kind of effect that we want. So we're going to go back to text, and this time we're going to look for a folder called Animate In. And when we open that up, great, almost everything works there. There's all kinds of effects there, which is good. Again, you saw the last video, some of the stuff doesn't come up, which is kind of frustrating because now, again, by clicking on things, I can watch a preview, so I don't have to guess as to what that effect is. So what I'm going to look for is one called the effect I'm looking for is called fade up characters. So I'm going to have to look here. Oh, there it is, fade up characters. So that's the one I want. So I'm previewing it now. Hopefully, if I double click it, it should get applied to my layer. And again, this is a little slow sometimes, but double click it and it should work. And now, of course, you can see how it's created this effect, right? So it's faded up each character one at a time. So that gives you an idea of how these kind of preset animations work. And again, what I want to do is I actually want to speed that up a little bit. So I'm going to go to that animated documentary layer. I'm going to hit the U key, and those are the two keyframes. Under range selector 1, there's start and there's end. So basically what I want to do is I'm going to move this keyframe here because it goes from 5 seconds to 7 seconds. But what I want to do is shorten it up. So I'm going to take that keyframe and move it so it's at 6 seconds. So now, basically if you want to put your playhead right at 6 seconds, that way you can kind of know exactly when you're right on 6 seconds. So now you can see it's a little bit faster, right? And again, because anything I do in the nested composition, of course, when I go to the master composition, yeah, it's doing it. It's doing it in there as well because this is a nested composition, which means that, it basically can access and change anything, and those changes will appear. Okay, so I can close up those properties now, and that's good. I'm going to go File, Save As, because again, I've made some major changes here, and I want to make sure that, I save my AEP file manually, even though I do have an autosave vault going. But remember, the autosave is just basically backing you up. You shouldn't be relying on just the autosave because, again, a lot of stuff can go wrong in this program. And trust me, not only can it go wrong, but it will go wrong. And it can be a little frustrating, to say the least. Okay, we'll continue on.